Hey guys, Wolfie here and welcome back to the channel. As always, the usual disclaimer. Any opinion here is mine and mine alone. Now, before you guys ask, this is not the Volume 9 review. That's going to be coming in at least another week or two. I need to, make sure my head's in the overall right space to really go into that one. But we're going to be talking about something else instead in the meantime. And the topic in question is a theory video. And by that, what did really happen to Summer Rose? Do we know anything in the sense of what really happened? Who was telling the truth? Who's hiding something? And at the end of the video, will this whole theory not only come true, will it affect the relationship between Yang and RWBY as sisters? And if it does affect them, how? So there's a lot to go into this video, including the following. What we know from the show's hint up to the end of Volume 9, Chapter 10. The varying players, which does include a surprising character in that list, with the exact moment that they could be a potential candidate. Who's innocent? Who's hiding something or has additional information? The very questions that could lead into, based on the hints and those characters, what really happened to Summer Rose. And again, will this affect Yang and RWBY's sisterly relationship? And if that's the case, how? First and foremost, we're going to go into the hints because there's a decent amount of hints given by the show up to this point. Now, if there's anybody who's wondering, I'm not including the information from any of the novels because, unfortunately, for the novels, they don't really give any real information in sense of like a potential hint, who it involves, when, etc. So, I do have the hints right over here. And again, this is based off what the show has provided to the audience up to Volume 9, Chapter 10. So there are going to be some spoilers here and there, so if you missed like some of the older works, you might want to catch it like on your own time, if that makes any sense. So without any further delay, so the most obvious hint, and this is pretty much on all mediums tied to RWBY, is that Summer Rose is presumed to be dead. And the way we know this is that at varying points throughout the show, we know that whole thing, that whole like stone memorial for Summer does kindly I scatter. I think that's the thing on her tombstone. So we do know that, and we've seen RWBY speak to Rose. We see RWBY speak to Summer like this. So this is something we do know. She is presumed to be dead. Now, at a few points in some of the recent volumes, volumes 7 and 8, to be more specific, Salem, believe it or not, has spoken of Summer in some extent. Whether it be to RWBY Rose herself or even Yang Xiaolong. So, we do know at some point in volumes 7 and 8, Salem has spoken of Summer. Now, depending on the individual who she addresses Summer to, is RWBY was told that Summer was saying some of the same exact lines that RWBY did in late volume 7, and then Yang mentioned Summer Rose's name during a capture in volume 8. So we do know that much. We do know about the Summer presumed to be dead. We also know that Salem has been mentioning Summer's name. Now, oddly enough, with the whole aspect tied to Yang in volume 8, we do know that there are other people who have heard the whole. They have heard Yang say Summer's name. At least three of them being Jean, Ren, and it's either going to be Oscar or Emerald, because I'm going to get one of those two up, so I'm going to put them both like that. Now, another hint comes in volume 5 of all places. Now, some people mentioning that are starting to bring to light that very aspect of volume 5 are starting to show itself in Volume 9. Now, one of the characters from Volume 5 is Raven Branwen. Now, why Raven at this point in time is because if you remember how Raven speaks of Summer, whether it be Summer's name directly or being your mom whenever Raven talks to RWBY, or whatever have you, it's like you have to pay attention to the tone pretty carefully, and to be more specific here, is that it tends to be very mixed. And if speaks about Raven in a mixed manner to both RWBY and Yang, you could probably see where the relationship between Raven and Summer were going. Now, this still here comes from Volume 9, Chapter 10, and it kind of shows that Raven was one of the last people seen with Summer. Now, back to Summer. So, in the last 2 episodes of Volume 9, Chapters 9 and 10 to be more specific, we hear Summer Rose speak for the very first time. And we know that more information comes along in the sense of the hints we've been given. We know that Summer was reading a bedtime story to both RWBY and Yang when they were children. RWBY was not dead. I think Yang was probably going to be started snoring. And we also know that by the time, Summer was done reading the story, she looked at Yang in a particular way. I mean, it's like a little bit of happiness, but also I feel a little bit of worry. Which we all know because Yang is Raven's daughter. So we do know there was a bedtime story involved. It was Alex, and the whole thing with Alex and Alice in Wonderland. We do know that much. So we do know that much. So there was a bedtime story that Summer read to Yang and RWBY before meeting up with Raven. Now, in addition to that, Summer had a bit of a heart-to-heart with Tai-Yang. Now, a bigger revelation from this is that we know that Tai-Yang and Summer never wed. Which could be the same thing regarding Raven when she was with Tai-Yang. So, a potential big hint here is that Tai-Yang may or may not know certain things that he is yet to reveal to both Yang and RWBY. But that whole thing with Tai-Yang, that's going to be later on in the video. Now, another hint comes in the form of Crow Branwen, Raven's twin brother. Now, the hint here is that towards the end of Volume 4, it might be the end of Volume 4, this was after Crow was struck by Tyrion. Crow was mumbling something along the lines of, "Tai, she's not coming back. She's not coming back." Oh, something along those lines. So, it's a pretty clear reference to Summer and death. Now, yet another hint comes in Volume 7. Now, the hints here are in no particular order, so bear with me. So, in Volume 7, another hint shows up. I want to say it was Chapter 4. I could have this wrong. And this was between Crow and RWBY. Now, Crow and RWBY have a bit of a chit-chat, away from everybody else. Now, Crow, in part of the conversation, brings to light that Crow is noticing some key differences between Summer and RWBY. How Summer was doing things and how RWBY is doing things. It's completely different. Now, RWBY was asking about Summer, and Crow provided a pretty big hint here. So it was admission that unfortunately he knew very little about, as did Ozpin. Meaning that this is not one of those missions where Ozpin would have sent Summer on, meaning that it was something a little bit more hush-hush, top secret. Now, another hint that comes along, believe it or not, comes from Yang Xiaolong herself. Now, where does this hint come along? It comes in Volume 5 at a couple of points. Now, Yang knows about things about how one becomes a maiden of a particular season, whether it be spring, summer, fall, or winter. She knew that in order for somebody to obtain a maiden's powers, whether it be winter maiden, summer maiden, spring maiden, fall maiden, that means that individual receiving the powers must be the final thoughts of the previous maiden. This is something that Yang had to put two and two together, which Weiss herself was probably aware of. And Weiss has more knowledge of the whole thing with the maidens in Volume 7, as well as Volume 8, because we know in Volume 8, Winter becomes the newest Winter Maiden, because she was in Penny's final thoughts. Which means Yang may have some knowledge of what particularly happened, because Yang knew certain things about the previous Spring Maiden, which in turn had Raven somehow becoming the new Spring Maiden. Or should I say the current Spring Maiden. So, with that bit of information in mind, Volume 8 gives another potential hint. So, we have to remember, this is when Yang was separated from everybody else. Now, there was a fight between, like, the people that were at the Schnee Manor, and it involved a Grimm with a human face. Now, RWBY took a good look at the entire situation, and at some point in late Volume 8, was like RWBY was bringing to light that I know what happened to Mom, and she was mentioning Summer turned into a Grimm. So, looks like a potential mercy kill. Somebody had to kill Summer. But the question comes down to, did that really happen, in my personal opinion? Which I'll get into that later on in this video. One other hint does come via Tai Yang. However, it is the post-volume credit scene, and this is the post-credit scene after Volume 5. We see a bird heading towards the house that Tai Yang is living in, and we honestly don't know who it is, because we can probably narrow it down to either crow or raven, with what could be some additional information. We simply don't know what that information is. It can be interpreted as the revelation of what really happened to Summer, or it could be saying information about RWBY and Yang. So we simply don't know that part. And this is on top of we don't know who is visiting Tai. But we do know that the facial expression Tai Yang had was not a good one. Now there's one particular scene here, and I'm going to go back to Weiss here for a moment, but it is for a very important reason. And that involves the scene in Volume 5, Chapter 6, known by its song, because we do know that Vernal, Raven, Yang, and Weiss are all in the same room. And then Raven brings up some very interesting information, which includes things about Summer, and Raven was mentioning, I know people that come back from the dead. And some of those stuff that Raven says does bring about a focal point, because it's like, if they come back from the dead, what did they come back as? Now, the last hint for this section of the video involves RWBY herself now. She sees Raven, like very late Volume 5, but you have to pay attention to the tone RWBY uses when she sees Raven. And the tone was one of pretty much disgust, in my personal opinion. Because it seems like that RWBY has a feeling that Raven knows what happened. And Raven's been hiding some very key information from everybody about what happened this summer. For this section of the video, I will be revealing the potential players in Summer Rose's fate and where the potential hint of that comes along. Now, I will not reveal whether or not they're innocent or not just yet, but I will reveal who could be playing a role in her fate. Now, right out the gate, I will exclude Summer from this section because Summer, she's the subject of this video. Now, the first and most obvious potential player in Summer Rose's fate is none other than Raven Branwen herself. Now, the reason why she is a potential player, and a big one, is that if you notice that the last 2 episodes of RWBY, chapters 9 and 10 of volume 9, it's being revealed that she is one of the last people that has seen Summer Rose alive. And you have to remember, in previous volumes, and by that volume 5, Summer tends to be talked about in a very mixed tone when Raven talks about her to RWBY, Yang, and the others. Now, the second potential player in the entire equation is Salem, because, again, she has spoken about Summer in volumes 7 and 8 to some extent, and the tone when it comes to Summer's name being mentioned to RWBY and Yang is a little bit different. Meaning that RWBY was told that Summer said some of the same things that RWBY did in late volume 7. Yang brought up Summer's name in volume 8, and again, it's a little bit mixed, and it differed when Salem was addressing Summer to both RWBY and Yang. The third potential player here is Crow Branwen. It comes down to the volume 4 hints, and again, it's towards the very end. He was mumbling something along the lines of "she's not coming back" time, meaning that the she in what wrote was who. Regarding of who Crow was talking about, the she was clearly referring to Summer, and the fact that she is dead. Now, this is the surprising character here. Why is she? Now, why? Now, we're going to go back to volume 5, chapter 6, known by its song. Now, you have to remember that conversation Raven had with Yang and Weiss, meaning that Raven knew that people that came back from the dead. Magic is real, and certain things about Raven being able to prove certain things. Now, we do know that Raven was able to transform into a raven, the bird, and back into her human form at will. Meaning that Weiss may have picked up a clue as to what happened to Summer. But we don't really know if Weiss knows that, just that, or not. Now, another potential player here is Yang Xiaolong. Now, Yang has had a pretty healthy amount of conversations with Raven in volume 5 at a few points. One of them, again, is once again known by its song, volume 5, chapter 6. And you have to think about that particular conversation. Now, you also have to look at the end of volume 5. And this is before the post-credits scene. And to be more specific, Raven was warning Yang about falling down the same exact path Summer did. And Yang brought up the topic of the previous Spring Maiden. Meaning that Yang knew something happened between Raven and the previous Spring Maiden. And that alone could reveal another hint as to what happened to Summer just by putting 2 and 2 together on Yang's end. Meaning that Yang might be hiding some information from everybody in sense of Tai, even RWBY herself. Now, Ozpin, not so much Oscar, but I would say it's more so Ozpin, may have some information on Summer Rose. However, it's very vague in the sense of any information from volume 3. However, since the whole thing with Oscar and Ozpin, Oscar might provide some additional insight. Let me rephrase this a little bit. Oscar may have been given some additional insight in various aspects of Summer before the quote-unquote secret mission. So it would not come as any surprise if Oscar and Ozpin knew something about what happened to Summer. Now, Tai Yang, again, he is a key player in this, in my personal opinion, because of a few things. First and foremost, he and Raven don't really get along, and then you could probably tell based on the post-credit scene at the end of Volume 5 that he had a look on his face like he's really sad and that sort of thing. And then we also have to remember towards the end of Volume 4, Crow was mumbling, she's not coming back, Ty. So Crow was with Ty, like, in the sense of what happened to Summer. Ruby Rose. Now, the only reason why she is a potential player here is, again, that whole thing with Volume 8, in the sense of she mentions of, like, Mom was turned into a Grimm. She was previously killed. And then killed again as a Grimm. So we know that much. So Ruby mentioned something right there out of the gate, out of the blue. But the question is that even legitimate? Is that even real? Now, the second to last potential player here is none other than Vernal. Now, why her? Now, she only made an appearance in Volume 5, but she was very close to Raven. Now, sadly, Vernal will, and this is like the only revelation in the sense of who's innocent, who knows something. Vernal is an automatic innocent in the fact that she died at the end of Volume 5. So, unfortunately, anything Vernal would have known went with her to the grave. Now the final potential player in this is Cinder, because the simple fact that she is with Salem, and then, like the whole thing with Vernal and Raven, oddly enough, there may have been some information revealed pertaining to Summer, so Cinder may or may not know something. It's a matter of a waiting and see on that. But, again, it remains to be seen. But like I said, the automatic innocent party on this, and I will reiterate this, like in the next section, is Vernal, because she was killed by Cinder. Therefore, whatever Vernal may have known went with her to the grave. For this part of the video, this is going to be just for those who are innocent, meaning that they either don't know enough information in the sense of what happened this summer, or they're not alive at the time of Volume 9, Chapter 10 to really be able to say anything about it. So, without any further delay, who is innocent? Who doesn't know enough information on Summer's fate? The first person here is none other than Vernal. The reason why she is innocent is because she died at the end of Volume 5, meaning that even if she knew anything about what happened to Summer via Raven, she is not alive to really say anything about it. Before I go any further into this video, I just want to mention here that this is going to be multiple recording sessions because I will be heading to the gym. And oddly enough, I do need to, it's probably going to be a day or two in the sense of me recording certain things for this particular video. So, with that bit out of the way, why she is the second person who is completely innocent in the sense of Summer's fate, because she simply does not know enough. Although she's one of the main characters, and she was with Yang during the events of Volume 5, Chapter 6, note by its song. However, Wise does not know enough information in the sense of what happened to Summer. You have to remember, Volume 5, Chapter 11, Wise was Raven's target, meaning that she was meant to target the former heiress, which was from Raven about Wise. So Wise does not know much, if anything, pertaining to Summer. Ruby Rose. She is innocent because although in Volume 8 she reveals something along the lines of what may have happened to Summer, honestly enough, I don't think what Ruby revealed in Volume 8 was what actually happened. And if it did happen, was there anybody else involved in that whole process? Yang Xiaolong is a question mark because there is a possibility that during the events of Volume 5, off screen, Yang was told some additional information from Raven pertaining to Summer's fate. Now, you remember Volume 8, Yang reveals Summer's name to Salem pertaining while they were being held hostage. So it's one of those things. Yang is actually a question mark. She may know something. She may be innocent. We simply do not know. Cinder is another question mark alongside Yang. Now the reason that is that, granted, we're talking about the Fall Maiden, and the disdain that Cinder has have for RWBY this entire time. So it comes down to, does Cinder know any additional information? We simply do not know. However, with that being said, the whole thing with Volume 4 where Salem warns Cinder, you better be careful due to RWBY's silver-eyed abilities. So Cinder is a question mark alongside Yang. Now, another two characters that fall under innocent, although a question mark with one of them, are Crow and Aspen. Now, the reason that is that for Aspen, it's like he didn't really know much about Summer outside of the missions he had given Team Stark. With that being said, Crow is a bit of a question mark, but more on the innocent side for a few reasons. Now, Volume 4, again, I have to reiterate, Crow was mentioning Ty, she's not coming back, meaning that something did happen to Summer, and Crow likely relates some information to Ty, or alternatively, Crow was comforting Ty because of what happened to Summer. So we simply do not know Crow's knowledge as of yet, although Crow did confirm to RWBY in Volume 7 that the circumstances as to what happened was something that Aspen had no knowledge about. But like I said, Crow is a bit of a question mark, but he is more innocent than knowing additional information. I will add here, in all fairness, that if RWBY were to find out additional information pertaining to Summer, it's going to be from Aspen through Oscar. So just to be 100% clear here. I am shooting like tomorrow or even Tuesday to reveal my list on who potentially knows more information, if you know what I mean. Hello, it's a new day, and it's a Monday to be more specific. I go to work in a little bit, so to do a very brief recap from when I was shooting yesterday, since I'm filming this is some of the members of the Innocent Party, including Oz and Oscar, alongside Crow and Weiss. Weiss, again, she was present, during Volume 5, Chapter 6, known by its song. However, Weiss simply was not told any information despite being in the same company as Yang Xiaolong herself. So that's why Weiss is an Innocent Party for now. She was part of that scene too. Also innocent because even if Vernal, however you pronounce her name, Vernal, even if she was told anything about Summer by Raven, she's dead, so there's no way Vernal could prove anything. Crow is just like, you have to remember Volume 4 towards the very end, although he was mumbling, Ty, she's not coming back, Ty, she's not coming back, Crow only knows the information that Aspen told him. So it's one of those, it's like, Crow and Oz, basically they know the same amount of information, which in all honesty isn't that much. Now, there are some characters who are on the question mark, and they're also going to be individuals that know more information. Now, Yang Xiaolong, she is one of those who potentially knows more information, because if you can remember her interactions with Raven during Volume 5, and this is before Yang and Weiss went over to where RWBY was, and then again at the end of Volume 5, is that Raven more than likely told Yang some information in the format of the hints that were given. And the fact that Yang was like not happy to hear Raven talk about Summer and Ty in the way that she did, although we do know Raven is very much mixed regarding how Summer is addressed. So I do feel that Yang might be a question mark, but I also feel at the same time that Yang does know something, because Yang was aware about the maidens, how they get their powers. Raven was the last person in the thoughts of the previous spring maidens. So that much we do know. Now, Cinder here, she is a question mark because it's like the disdain Cinder has always had for RWBY. But the question is like, is there any additional information that Cinder knows about Summer as well as RWBY? The jury is out, in all honesty, because, how Cinder is towards RWBY and Team RWBY, all that stuff. But it comes down to, was Cinder told anything about RWBY from Salem? And this is outside the Silver Eye's ability. So, Cinder may know something, she may not. So she's on both sides here because of that fact alone. It depends on what Salem has told Cinder. Salem definitely knows something in the sense of what happened to Summer. We simply do not know the specifics or if it's even true. Meaning that Summer Rose's name was mentioned by Salem towards the end of Volume 7. And if you remember Volume 8, Yang brings up Summer's name. Is that we definitely know that Salem has more information. We simply do not know the specifics. But to be completely fair here, we do not know if Salem was really telling the truth. Or if she knows something else that she might be covering up for somebody else. Now, based on the post-credits scene for Volume 5, Ty knows. And this is supporting evidence from Volume 4, Chapter 9, where Ty reveals to Yang that Raven was the reason why Team Stark fell apart. Meaning that Raven actually knows something. Knows a little bit further information. Which means that Raven definitely knows something. She knows way more. She's just not really revealing information to just anybody. We simply, this is as far as I'm concerned. But like I said, Raven definitely knows. But the question is, who didn't involve alongside herself and Summer? Was Salem really involved? And I wouldn't be surprised if it involves the Spring Maiden. And by the Spring Maiden, not Raven herself, but the previous Spring Maiden. Or even a Summer Maiden. So it's one of those things, it's like, time will only tell. But again, I do feel Raven knows way more than we think. And the reason why I feel Raven knows way more is, again, you have to remember, even though she makes her first appearance in Volume 2 to save Yang from Neo, there's a lot of conversations that gave away a lot of hints in Volume 5. Again, Volume 5, Chapter 6 is the big one, because it gives out a lot of hints right there. And then, if you remember Volume 5, Chapter 14, the end of that volume, is that Raven's warning to Yang about following the same exact path, which is another hint on Summer, in the sense of what happened to Summer Rose. So, to recap here, Ty Yang and Raven have some degree of information, in my personal opinion. Yang is a bit of an on-the-fence sort of thing, but if Yang were to put two and two together based on what information she was given from Ty and Raven, I do feel that Yang actually knows something. And with Ty, again, I'm basing it off of Volume 4, Chapter 9, alongside the post-credits scene in Volume 5, where he was informed by a bird. We do not know if it's Raven or Crow. And I feel that information is tied to what happened to Summer. The innocent party is going to be Crow, because although we hear the information from towards the end of Volume 4 saying, Ty, she's not coming back, meaning Summer, we find out in Volume 7 that Oz only knew as much about what happened to Summer as Crow did. So, whatever happened to Summer, they were probably finding out after the fact. And Weiss, yes, she was in the same company with Vernal, Yang, and Raven, Volume 5, Chapter 6. It's simply not enough to really put Weiss in the knowing more information when really she only knows super little. Whereas Cinder, it's a bit of like, jury's still out, because It's going to come down to what the information center was told by Salem, or some discovery on her own. So jury is still out on Cinder. She may know something, but it comes down to what information Salem has told her, and it's more specific to the volume 4 interaction where Salem warned Cinder, you got to be careful, especially if Ruby gets a real good hold on the Silver Eyes ability. And as for Salem, comes down, the biggest question to ask here is whether or not Salem was really telling the truth. Because you have to remember, towards the end of Volume 7, Salem tells Ruby, you're saying the same exact lines Summer did. And then Volume 8, Yang brings up Summer's name. And then also you have to think about Ruby mentioning about Summer may have turned into Grim. So it comes down to who's really telling the truth. And there's something else that may have happened that would have like clear the air here and figure out who was saying the truth, who was lying. So now we get to the part of the video where there are additional questions that are going to be asked and what it could mean like for the series to go forward, regardless if Volume 10 and beyond does get the green light, or if the remainder of RWBY gets transformed into novels. So bear with me. So these are some of the questions here, and then I have to look into my my notes here. And I may have to add in another chapter, quote unquote, so that way everything is as cohesive as possible. So what's one of the questions I've been thinking about since all the hints that we've seen up to this point is that, and I'm not going to be answering them right away, so it's like, bear with me. So the first question is people are going to be asking based on the hints we've seen up to Volume 9, Chapter 10 is, was Salem telling the entire story? Was she even telling the truth? So that's the first question, based on the hints. Now, the second question comes down to Raven. What additional information does she know? And another question to ask within that was, what was her real relationship with Summer? Were they closer than we think? Were they frenemies? So on and so forth. So that's something we need to figure out. And regarding Summer, who killed her? Or what killed her? Which, again, Raven is probably the only person that really knows. But again, the only thing with Salem, we simply do not. Now, over the last few volumes, did Yang really connect the dots in the sense of figuring out what happened to Summer, based on the Volume 5 conversations he's had with Raven? Now, another question to ask here is, did Raven play a vital role in what happened this summer? And furthermore, again, was Salem telling the entire story? Was she telling the truth? And was Salem connected to Raven in the sense of what happened this summer? Now, before I go any further, the questions I'm asking in this section of the video are in no particular order with my notes. So, when it comes to Summer, another question to ask, and this is tied to Raven, did it involve the previous Spring Maiden? Now, another question to ask was Tai-Yang given any information about what happened this summer? And if that's the case, did something happen off screen to where Yang was given additional clues, yet Yang chose to not reveal them to RWBY? If Yang was given some additional information, will this affect the sisterly relationship between Yang and RWBY? And will the revelation of Summer's fate split the team up once again? And to add on to one of those last questions, if this does affect the sisterly relationship between Yang and RWBY, how will it affect them? Will they view each other the same way as they did before? Now, one of the last questions for this section of the video, was Summer really living a double life? And Again, the whole thing with the relationship between Summer and Raven was Summer hiding something. And will that affect everything that we've known up to this point? For this section of the video, it's going to be, I'm not so sure how long this is going to be, but I will say that it's been kind of lengthy in the sense of like what I'm going to say next. And it's going to be like who likely knows like what happened, what as well as what likely happened. It's more, so it's a bit of a combination of who I think knows the most and what probably happened. So, among the parties who may know the most information, yes, Raven is the number one person here. However, Tai and Yang, I also feel, knows certain extents of the information of what happened to Summer based on certain aspects of Volume 5. Not only throughout Volume 5, but also the post-credit scene after Volume 5. Alongside Volume 8 with Yang. So I do feel that these three right here have some degree of additional information, with Raven having the most of it. Now Salem, yes, I do feel that she knows something, but in my honest opinion, it comes down to what she told, what the information that she told RWBY late Volume 7, was it real or was it exaggerated to someone? And I feel it's a little bit of both. And it's partially because of Volume 8, you know, the whole thing with Summer, Summer, Yang, and Salem, meaning that Yang mentioned Summer's name to Salem, but it's like, it comes down to like what Salem knows and what did, and did the information that RWBY was informed by from Salem was the accurate story. And then the whole thing with Volume 8, the same thing with the Grimm and Summer. So we simply do not know if Salem was telling the truth. Now, as for Cinder, I do not know if she knows anything. She may not. But if Cinder knows anything about Summer, it probably would have come from Salem herself. But we honestly don't know, and this is why I don't feel that Cinder would know much information, if any. Which makes me to believe that Raven did in fact kill Summer. Now, I honestly feel that it did involve the previous Spring Maiden. Because you have to remember, the information that Osmond and Crow knew were about the same in the sense of the amount of information they were given. And I also feel that Summer lived a double life. Meaning that not just the Huntress, but she was doing super secretive missions with Raven. Now, as for certain aspects, as to whether or not it was tied to Salem, we simply do not know. But I don't think Grimm were merged with Summer at all. I honestly feel that for some reason, Raven either killed Summer herself over something tied to the previous Spring Maiden, or Raven killed Summer as a mercy kill, meaning that something else happened to Summer. Summer was transferred with the Grimm, and Raven was forced to kill her. Meaning that regardless of how the future of RWBY comes down to, Raven will be a top, target in the sense of like needing information sought from Yang and RWBY. And let me check the time here real quick. So, I'm doing a lot better than time than I thought of this. But like I said, just to recap this section of the video, I thought it was going to be longer, but I got the point out quicker than I anticipated. Yes, I do feel that Raven was the one who killed Summer. And it's either some format of jealousy to get the Spring Maiden's powers, or a mercy kill because Salem did something to Summer and combined Summer into a Grimm, and Raven was forced to kill her. Which could explain the whole aspect of Raven's attitude and character in Volume 5. But we do know that Summer was living some format of a double life alongside Raven. And we also have to remember that Raven is a bit on the mixed side when it comes to speaking about Summer. And the reactions from RWBY and Yang are pretty similar, but I also feel that Yang knows a little bit more information than we were let on. But you guys have to remember, this is my opinion. Now that all this stuff is out of the way, the biggest question remains. Regardless of what we find out about Summer Rose's fate, what killed her, will this affect RWBY's sisterly relationship with Yang? Now, it comes down to what is 100% confirmed as to what exactly happened this summer. Now, if it turns out that Yang knew some additional information and withheld it from RWBY, this could have Yang being seen in a bad light, meaning that Yang is repeating very mistakes that Raven did. And if that does turn out to be the case, I would see the sister relationship suffer a major strain. Meaning that Yang may have additional information that she's withholding from others about other things. And this could see the team itself being split up once again because Yang is simply repeating the mistakes that Raven did. And you have to remember, Raven was the reason that Team Stark split per the conversation between Tai and Yang in Volume 4, Chapter 9. And now, if you look at this other particular hint here, this is Volume 9, Chapter 10. I'm going to zoom it in just a smidge. You notice here that you have to look at the varying flowers that present each of the team members. Now, if you look at the flower for Weiss, RWBY, and Blake, it's like you can see them a little bit closer together than Yang. Then Yang, you see two of them, and everybody else here is at one. So this could be, and again, this is just my opinion, Yang could be withholding some additional information, and you see that Yang's flower is further away from the rest. Now, this is a bit of a visual clue to be seen here. Now, again, the team may split up, they may not. But you also have to look at the positioning of some of the flowers, where RWBY is like a little bit like very much up front, closer to the viewer. Yang's is further away, and there's two of them instead of one, which could mean a possible strain between Yang and RWBY coming along in future volumes. And this could mean that Yang's withholding information. But you guys have to remember, this is just my opinion. And with that being said, let's just say that Yang only knew as much, that she wasn't withholding information. Now, this could mean that the team still stays together. However, something else could put a pretty bad strain on the team, or even Yang and RWBY's sisterly relationship. But it all comes down to the information Yang has pertaining to Summer. And the biggest thing we have to consider here is whether or not Yang has in fact been connecting the dots off screen since the end of Volume 5. And if Yang was connecting the dots, and the story that RWBY was given, and sense of the hints she was given different than what Yang was being told, that does mean that somebody was lying to them, and it's not going to end well, in my personal opinion. So on that note, I'm going to do an outro either tonight after I get home from work, or tomorrow, so that way everything comes together in full circle. To put my final thoughts into the entire video, I am home from work, so it's Monday night. For a few things to keep in mind here for this particular video. Like I said, it's 100% theory on Summer Rose, what happened to her. I do feel she died. I also feel that Raven played a very major role in that. With Salem, it comes down to whether or not she ordered the kill to happen in the first place. That is Sandy the Tabby is about to be drinking some water from a pint glass. And those glasses are his, by the way. But anywho, like I said, Summer Rose is in fact dead, in my personal opinion. I feel Raven killed her, either out of mercy, post Summer merging with the Grimm via Salem, or something else happened tied to the previous Spring Maiden, and Raven killed out of greed. Raven does have a lot of explaining to do, but so does Tai Yang, and Yang to a smaller extent in my personal opinion, as everybody else either does not know enough information, or in Vernal's case, Vernal is dead and can't confirm or deny anything about this. Regarding the whole aspect of Summer's fate affecting the sisterly relationship between RWBY and Yang, this is still from Volume 9, Chapter 10, where you notice here the flower for Yang is a little further away from the rest of the team. Because you see RWBY, you have the closest one to it is Blake's flower, and then you have Weiss like a little slightly behind that. And I do feel this is going to put a major strain on the sisterly relationship between RWBY and Yang, but that will depend on how much Yang knows and what information Yang might be withholding from RWBY pertaining to Summer. So with that, I'm going to conclude it with somebody who wants to say hi. Don't you want to say hi, Sandy? Don't you want to say hi? You do or you don't? And it looks like he doesn't want to say hi to everybody. I think he's in the midst of cleaning himself, so I'm going to let him be. But, again, I think Summer is in fact dead. Raven played a very major role in it. I do feel Tai Yang, as well as Yang, the latter to a lesser extent, has more information that is being withheld from RWBY. And depending on if Yang's able to connect the dots from her conversations with Raven in Volume 5, this could put a major strain on the sisterly relationship with RWBY. But only time will tell, regardless of what happens to RWBY from here out, and by that, Volume 10 and beyond. And that's all I have for this video, in reality. So with Wolvie here signing off, I will catch you all on the flip side.